20, number 238 of the Decoded podcast. We got Chris with the background humming music to
Yeah.
welcome you into the Decoded podcast.
The theme. I don't even remember what's that called. What's that called? I know you duck it. I think that was the thing. You duck your music, as in you let it kind of fall underneath the chatter.
Yes.
Right? Remember those back in the day when that happened?
When I was setting up the Twitter for this morning to invite people over, I went to put your name into the tweet and it did not pop up. And just the other day, I was wondering, is Chris still on vacation in Twitter? So I discovered this morning that you are not around Twitter anymore. So how was your vacation? Did you
It
enjoy
was,
yourself?
yeah. It was funny. I thought for sure that kind of walking those streets and checking out the shops and, the different open spaces that I found, did not have the same emotional connection. It's there's some quote like you can never go back. You can never go back. I don't know. I think that's, kind of talking about your hometown or something like that. But I had the sense of that, like just being, actually, this is the best way I can say it. When in my use of Twitter, I can remember times where I was absolutely addicted to it. Like it was, I think when I messaged you a couple days before I left, you were talking about how to maximize Twitter. And I threw in some stump in the road by just saying, yeah, it's also good to know when it's no longer useful. Don't bother maximizing it. And for me, it's don't bother maximizing it in order to fall in love with it again. Maximize it because you're still in love with it. And then like kind of burn yourself out of the space, like really use it to the point where you're like, yeah, whether or not you want to stay anymore. And I think that's what also the vacation reminded me, is that I don't have the emotional connective tissue to go back there. I was kind of jumping on other people's feeds, checking out. I went to a lot of new places on Twitter. I found myself following a lot of street photography, street artists. I noticed in following poets that a lot of the poets that I found that started off interesting to me, then were doing exactly what has always kind of bugged me a little bit about Twitter too, is the marketing to me, like the EDUs and thought leaders marketing their wares to me. It just started to feel like on more street corners than not, there was some hustler trying to get me to buy something. And the poets and the writers that I was following, I found very few individuals that, at least where I'm at right now, I'm still in the here's another piece, here's another piece, here's another piece. Like I'm just in that producing stage of trying to create this kind of massive body of work before I actually decide what I'm going to do. Now I might just be checking into their body of work at a different time frame. Like maybe they did this 10 years ago and now they're trying to capitalize it and put their books together. But I just found I had a hard time finding people that were using Twitter like a sketchbook, and just kind of like constantly freestyling something and putting it out there, freestyling and putting something out there, and not freestyling, putting something out there like people do with tweets, like just random thoughts, unless I guess that they consider that to be their art, but where artists are actually just posting up stuff because Twitter is like a portfolio space for them. I found like that's what I was craving, and I had a harder time finding that. So I think that's what changed my emotional connection, my addiction, my craving to actually, that moment you pull your phone up, no matter what your intention is, no matter what my intention is with my phone, if I look down at the first screen and I see the Instagram app, I'm more likely, even if I was going to check my school board email, I'll tap on Instagram just to check it for a second, just to see what's going on there, right? I want to get back into that loop. I want a little bit of that dopamine. Wasn't getting that anymore with Twitter. It's not there. Just falling out of love.
So would you say that number one, you're not interested in vacationing there anymore in general,
Well, it's
or
all
it
temporal.
depends on
It's
the ebb and
temporal.
flow?
Yeah, it's temporal. I would say definitely as I'm mapping, as you know, if we're using continue with that vacation analogy, you know, it's one thing to sort of actually I'll do this in a different way. My family a couple years back, we had a conversation around do we want to get a cottage? Like, do we want to invest in a second property? Um, I said, or do we want to just pay each year to go to a new place? And there was the kids too. And it was funny. They had to work it through because and this was just after going to a cottage. We had gone to a cottage. I've told you about our friends, our board game friends. We had gone with them and spent a week up in Fenelon Falls. That was the whole getting to go to the Kawartha factory, baby. It was awesome. So we're sitting there. I'm like, so what'd you think? Like, would you? And it was a really cool. It was a really great cottage setup that they had. So it was kind of like they had a great version to base their decision off of. It's not like we had just come off of a crap holiday. Distance was good. The drive was good. Town was nice. Cottage was easily accessible. Still out in the country. It was on the water. They had like this inflatable diving dock out in the lake. So everything about it is setting you up to buy, right? They came back and they said they'd rather go to different places. That was cool that they had that experience. Could I get them to go back to a cottage again? Probably. They would probably go back, but they wouldn't want that to be their main space for holiday. And I think that's how I'm thinking about Twitter. I would be it would be foolish of me to say that there wouldn't be something that would draw me back. And part of it too, here's the funny thing, is because it's no longer an anchored app for me. I don't have this. I have zero nostalgia, anxiety, stress about wiping my Twitter profile clean and starting again. It's kind of like I know that I can set up a new Twitter profile in less than 5 minutes and go and get what I need to get. I can sort of treat Twitter like rideshare. Like I can sort of sign up, get the car when I need it, and then hand them the car back and say, there you go. I don't need to worry about the maintenance. I don't have to sort of like feed into it, gas it up. I don't have to do a damn thing. So there could be something that draws me back. And I think I like the idea that I really like the idea that something could surprise me and make me want to come back to Twitter because I want to remain open to Twitter. And part of it is I don't want to go. I'll call it like I don't want to go and read teachers' feeds. That's the one thing that I did not do. I spent very little time absorbing edu content, and that's a different kind of mindset. I didn't go looking to Twitter to sort of feed me at all any educational stuff popped up, of course. Like it's just kind of like it's almost the algorithm gets you that way. It's funny even to avoid it. It still pops up. So if I would go back there, it would be as intentional as the holiday was. There'd be something about it that I'd be thinking, yeah, that's something I want to go and check out. And it would only be available on Twitter. I really dig Spaces. I will say the one thing just as a tool. I like Spaces. I do like Spaces. Would I stay with Twitter just for Spaces? No. No. I think probably Instagram has something you could do similar. Similar. So yeah, that's my spiel. It's not a bye-bye Twitter. It's just in the rear view, right? I might cycle back this way.
I like the idea of coming into it and doing what you want with it. So I'm starting to see different things being done with it, and I really like it. Like the other day, Benny, who's also known as the Stoic Padawan, he he started some like a collective thread. He kind of provided the topic, and then he asked people to jump in with their wisdom, or their perspective, to build this thread. And I was like, I like that idea. The problem is people don't jump in, and the research shows, I've dug into this a lot lately, that the majority of people on Twitter don't tweet. They just scroll through and check things out. So it's like, how do you get people to engage? Well, if people come into it not wanting to do it, it's going to be tough to change that mindset. Like, I know a lot of people who are on there, but they're like, no, I'm not saying a word. Why? Well, I'm worried about this and I'm scared about this and I don't feel my voice is important. And like, you get a whole list of reasons why. And I'm not saying those reasons aren't valid. I'm just saying that there's some good ideas to really build some excellent opportunities to grow. And like you, I'm not really spending time. I know where to find tweets on how to use ed tech in the classroom. I'm not interested in that right now. I'm more interested in finding tweets that are actually going to benefit me in terms of my personal journey, my productivity, my mental state, um, connecting with people who have like expertise in that area or similar interests. So I get it. I get what you're saying. Um, now that so I wanted to piggyback on something you said to move into our next to move, but I lost it. I also wrote down this idea of non-thought leadership. So you've got people on there who are thought leaders. Maybe it's time we intentionally get people on there who are non-thought leaders. And I don't know what that might look like, but
Well, I think that's a little bit what it sounds like you're what Benny was trying to do. It's still collectivism, it's still community building, it's just encouraging participation, right? So, the moment that you're pushing any idea anywhere, you're a thought leader. But there's the branded version of thought leaders, which I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but maybe if we just make it uh kind of specific, very, very specific, just so that we're talking about the same thing, it probably has to do with how empowered you are and how skilled you are. So there's influence that kind of comes along with that cachet of influence comes along with this idea of being a thought leader. Um, you bump up against also authentic discussion. That challenge of authentic discussion. We'll use Twitter as the litmus for this. So I'm not surprised of the data that you found about most people just scroll Twitter. Many, and anything that has anything that has just a verticality to it is a hamster wheel kind of an app. So Twitter it's all vertical. It's up and down, up and down, up and down. um Twitter and I think Insta and Facebook, I mean, by introducing that extra dynamic of the lateral scroll, it doesn't change the amount of doom scrolling, but it is a stopper that makes you, like, I find more often, because I can go left, right on Insta, my dopamine hit peaks and falls faster, and then I can put the phone down like that. So there's something about the mechanism of Twitter. If you're talking about people just doom scrolling or scrolling, Twitter still is vertical, and because of that, the intention is just to keep you on that infinite hamster wheel, right? Just kind of going past, craving the next thing, and actually stopping. I don't know. Can Twitter, if you open a tweet, if you open a tweet, can you actually swipe right to go back to your main feed on your mobile? And that was something that was added a little while ago, that a lot of the socials now, even email on my phone, sorry, like Google on my phone has that as well. Like if I'm just going into my Google homepage where the feed is there, if I open up one of the articles that's on there, as long as you do a little scroll and you can see the actual navigation tools at the top and the bottom, I can swipe right and it'll take me back to the parent feed. So anyways, Twitter, as far as building authentic conversation spaces, I think is hindered by this vertical scrolling thing. So you want to maintain your momentum once you start rolling and scrolling through the feed. Um, I also think that, and this is something that's always Something it's I don't know if it's specific to Twitter, but adding to a thread in Twitter because of its like that's just a nightmare to sort of go back and find, like if you come across something that you like on a Twitter thread, it's the thing that made me leave like Twitter chats as well. You know, this whole idea of that the main organizing feature in a Twitter chat is just make sure that you post to this hashtag. Well, that's like making a mixed chop salad, right? That's all it is. Hashtag salad, throw it in. Hashtag salad, throw it in. To actually go into and actually find a good little bit that you want to interact with. Typically for me with those chats, it was as long as your eyes were on the page, then that was the only thing that you were able to interact with effectively. So I like what Benny's doing, but I think the actual interface is working against it. And I think this is also what makes me less in love with Twitter. Like I see people conceptually. I haven't seen anything new done with Twitter that sort of makes me think like this is a cool way to use Twitter. Like I actually think the cool uses of Twitter now officially are all tapped out. I just, yeah,
I'm sure somebody will come up with some new ways. Apo
likely.
Beside the vertical
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
that you're
yeah,
talking about, I'm sure
yeah,
people are always looking to find new ways. Whether they
yeah,
take off or not's another thing.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
Spaces, when Spaces came, people were like you. I've been enjoying Spaces a lot because it's like listening to a podcast, especially when you get into a space that happens on a regular basis with the same people organizing it. It's pretty cool. It's like listening to your favorite podcaster.
So, and stolen from other places. Like
What
it's
do you
that's
mean?
not specific. Well, that's not specific to Twitter, right? That idea of the live
Spaces?
feed.
No,
Yeah,
no, it's
it's
not,
just their
but
version.
it's
So I think that's what I'm craving. Like that's what I'm craving when I think about what what Twitter is offering. Not a something that makes Twitter the indispensable place. Like I haven't like there hasn't been anything there late that I thought like that was something that Twitter started that other people wanted a piece of. And that's also what kind of breaks me from wanting to hang around there too much because I'm like I could just get this. I could just get this I could go get this on Insta. I could go get this on Facebook. Like this Snapchat has this, TikTok has this. You know what I mean? So we're starting to get this weird kind of convergence of every social media tool has a very specific suite of things to choose from. And what that means is, yeah, I could use Twitter to go there, but there just isn't enough there to keep me interested in going there. So that's all. That's all. I do like the spaces, but I mean, I like the idea of spaces, but I don't find it to be enough to make me say I have to go to Twitter to have that experience of being in a collective conversation. So
then again, there's the whole bunch of people in a space, bunch of people not interested in talking, just
yeah,
listening.
yeah,
So this whole conversation is interesting. As I listen to you talk about Twitter, I think about my issues with Instagram. Like this whole business of not being able to put a link in a post, it upsets me. It upsets me
does
a
it?
lot because, like, well, yeah, because if I'm reading one of your poems and you tell me where to find it, but I can't click on something to take me there, I'm not going.
Yep.
It upsets me because there's a lot of good stuff there too. I find it's not accessible quick enough. I'm not going to type in this long email, this long web address, right? And then sometimes people will say, "Well, link is in my profile." Awesome, but
That's a
that
thing.
changes often because they're constantly posting new stuff and saying, "Here, come check this out." But what sucks about that is I click on a picture from 2 weeks ago and I like the content and it says click in my profile and it'll take you there. I click on the profile and it's not taking me there. It's taking me to the newest thing, which is like 2 weeks like I'm out of date by 2 weeks. And it's like, well, I'm not going to go searching. I just think I don't know why they haven't opened up that option
Option. Yeah.
because I think if they did, it would be a game changer. But I don't work in that space. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. It's something well, as a, if I'm claiming content creator status, that has bothered me as well.
but this now brings me to the Twitter revision button. So like I'm constantly tweeting stuff and I look and I'm like, oh, spelt that wrong or whatever. I'd like to fix it. I can't. So it's like, okay, it's it's kind of interesting because what it's doing for me is it's allowing me to be okay with my mistakes, which is kind of fun. Like, oh shoot, that's a great tweet in my opinion. Um, I don't want to delete it and retype it out. I'm just gonna leave it. And then I think to myself, people will get it. And you always have the English teacher in people who are like, by the way, you spelt this wrong. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay, thank you. Um, or your grammar's wrong. Okay, thank you, English teacher. I appreciate that. The tweet's not going anywhere. So in a cool kind of way, it lets me feel okay with some of the mistakes I make. I like that. Yeah, I think it's great that we have a menu of social media options.
Hmm.
And I think it's great that they all have their own quirks and quarks. They just can't get it right, eh? Not we can't have one that'll do it all, I guess. Well, we could, but nobody's going to take the time to put it together.
Yeah,
Um, so I want to shift if that's okay with you.
do it.
The book club for men's coming back, baby. Um,
Hmm.
the Tools is the book we're going to be reading. Thanks, Chris, for putting it on my radar, for putting it on all our radars, because it was you that brought attention to the Netflix documentary or movie, whatever you want to call it, called
Doc. Yeah, it's
Stutz.
definitely,
It's
yeah,
a
it's a
doc,
doc.
okay,
Yeah.
called Stutz. Jonah Hill created a documentary about his psychiatrist, Phil Stutz, and his tools. And there's a book, and then you were talking about listening to the book. You got me listening to the book, but I couldn't listen to the book. It wasn't working for me. And you should have seen like the moment I had a moment of like I was just bothered. So I'm pulling up to a school and I pull over and I'm listening. I stop it, get out of my car, go into the school, do my work, come back into my car, start the car, and it's the whole thing starting over. And I'm like, my car's not that stupid. Like it's got to know to pick up where it left off. So I find myself trying to figure this out. And I'm like, this is dumb because as I'm listening, I'm hearing this good stuff. I want to take notes, but I can't because I'm driving. So it's one of those things where it's like, this is not the book for me to be listening to because I would like to take notes. I would like to make notes about what I'm hearing, the connections I'm making. So I buy the hardcover or soft cover, but I buy a book that I can hold in my hands. And I know you and I have been talking. You've been asking, "Hey, you gonna do another edition of the book club? Like, what are you thinking?" And it's just, I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing it." And so I dropped it for our general group that we belong to, and lots of people seem interested. Coming March 2023, the Tools Book Club for Men. I'm gonna post it up for a few people I've met on Twitter. We'll see what they think. They want to join, great. They don't want to join, that's good too. So thanks for the tap on the shoulder, I guess. I just felt with this book, I'm ready to jump back into the group and see if we can learn something together.
It's weird how scarce it is, eh?
Tell me more about that.
Well, just the so I don't know when Stutz hit the Netflix. I think Jonah Hill, like it was direct release to Netflix. Like I think that's what this was. It's a Netflix joint, right?
Yeah,
And I just so Stutz and his colleague Barry Michael, I think it's Barry Michael. Um, they're collaborators. They have they have the tools, and then they also have there's a second book, Becoming Alive, something like that. And there's actually a third book coming too. Um, and it was interesting because it was interesting to me was that, like I felt I kind of discovered something, this Stutz thing. Like I saw it pop up on Netflix. I'm like, yeah, how could that be interesting? And then I watched, I'm like, damn, this is really interesting. And then, this is really interesting led to, I can't get this out of my head. Like it kind of pops up as a memory. Like it's like that, how your socials put something in front of you from 12 months ago, and right away you're like, oh cool, yeah, I remember I went to had that burger, or yeah, my kid was in that show. And then maybe you'll reshare it. Well, that was the moment, right? This memory kept on popping up, but it was on a far tighter cycle than 12 months. It was popping up every couple of days. I'm like, yeah, I think I want to check out a little bit more about this guy. So it was at that point I was like, okay, I'm going to check to see, like, is there a book about this? Because at the time I felt like I was kind of rolling the dice. Like I didn't have a sense, because there was no mention of his book in the actual documentary. So you go look in. I went to Amazon. I said, okay, there it's there. And then it looked like some of the members of the book club, for some people, the algorithm showing them like they ain't getting it until mid-March. And then I look in there and I say, like, no, looks like I could have it delivered like by end of February. Like I feel like the delivery dates are all over the place. Regardless, it doesn't look like there's a strong inventory of it anywhere. So part of the discovery process of something that's, new to me but not new to anybody else, I guess there was something in my brain that thought, if this has been suddenly repopularized because Stutz has been doing this work for like 25, 30 years, then the Netflix show, like you'd almost think, how is it that the book wasn't ready to go with a new edition with a ton of copies ready to go? Like I wouldn't have thought it would be that scarce to try and find it. That's also part of the reason because I like what you said about this isn't a book for you, that like you want to stop and make notes. For me, it very much is a book that I can listen to. I like listening to the stories. I like hearing Barry narrates most of it. I'd say probably about 65, 70% of it. And then Stutz comes in to kind of qualify with, here's how sort of this tool came about. Like Stutz does some of the technical descriptions, which I like. I just like listening to his voice. So it is very much an audiobook that here's, I think, what it taps into. Because I'm participating in therapy, I'm doing therapy, there's something to listening to this book that feels like it's falling into that therapeutic frame. So it's almost like someone talking through it makes it taps into what I'm craving right now with monitoring my own growth and self-improvement. Like I feel like reading in a book, which I've considered picking up the book too, I'm starting to realize that when I buy books and I read a book, part of that experience is going to die, because the way that I take in information when I read the book is that it doesn't have the gregariousness of making me want to talk to people about it. It's kind of a weird thing that I've discovered about the way I learn. Even let's say when I buy like a book of poetry and I read the poetry, I am more likely, once I've read the poems once each, to just post up on socials, who wants a poetry book? I'll send it away. Like there's a very short list of books that I would ever say I would keep, because I actually think to myself, one, I'm going to go back into them. Very, very short list. Two, that the actual notes that I took in there that I would ever care about ever again. And three, books that I feel like I still have a relationship with when I'm done reading them. And so, you end up with a bookshelf of books. And I don't need books as furnishings. And I'm not saying books are furnishings, but I'm saying my process by buying them turns them into furnishings. I need something very vibrant, vivacious about the information that I'm putting in my head right now for it to actually keep bouncing around in this 51-year-old brain. And there's something about hearing them talk that I'm going like, you know, Pavlovian on. Like I listen to them talk. I'm like, that will lead to action today. I will try doing that today. When I look at it in the book, if I read the book, here's a funny thing. By reading the book, I would have to include the book club for men as part of my work to make sense of the book. But by listening to it, I feel like I can be in the car listening to one of the stories, get out of the car and test drive one of those things right away. And then it increases my learning cycle. It's kind of it's and this is a very recent discovery for me. Um and it's even a recent discovery where I'm implementing it in my professional settings as well, where I'm not taking notes. Apart from some of the things that I know for sure someone would ask me for, I've stopped taking a lot of I'll say flat out, I've stopped taking a lot of the notes, like even when I'm in an ISTM or I'm in a conversation with a parent. I'm stripping it right down to the bare minimum of who was there, what time is it, and what was the general topic. Um, and I'm trying to just be there in the moment and listen and depend. Maybe this is a flawed way to go. Maybe I should have started doing this 10, 20 years ago with my practice. If I can't carry it in my brain and use it while I'm moving through my space, then it's not useful to me. I don't want to wait for it to soak in and like, oh, now I get it. I want to like fight against it right away, make a decision whether or not it's useful to me, give it a try, take in the data, move on. And if it keeps echoing with me, just like this Stutz thing did, then I need to go deeper. Then there's still something. You and I said, someone else said this, like when what's that phrase? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So I feel like Stutz is very much, because of the work that I've done with the Stoic philosophy and the other philosophers that you and I have talked about at length, living philosophers. I feel like Stutz is a really great next step about activating currently, like right now, some of the stuff, like even the Daily Stoic. I can go right from reading the Daily Stoic, take a Daily Stoic, puts the idea in my head, Stutz sets the direction, and then I go and action it. Like I just like, here's the idea, Stutz gives me the framework, go give it a try. I feel like they're working very well right now. The Lego of living philosophically. So he's taking up space in my head right now. Absolutely rent free. Absolutely rent free. I make zero effort for it to come into my brain each day. Zero effort. And I love that.
I like that too, that you know that and you're good with that. I appreciate you sharing with us your learning style in this situation. I think it's wonderful. It's it's a it's great for people to hear that you got to find what works for you, right? So it's like for the longest time, I think I've talked about this on the podcast. For the longest time for me, learning for me was not picking up a book and reading through it.
Mhm.
That wasn't what worked for me. It wasn't what I felt I needed. So it's so cool to hear you talk about how you're processing what's happening in this book compared to how other people may process. And you got me thinking that there's probably no harm in me listening to it as I go from one place to another, because having it having it enter into me in different ways might actually benefit me, and we'll see what sticks. Right? I might read something, then hear it and be like, whoa, that I connect to that. I can make connections to that, and I can do something with that. I just don't like that my car starts it over from wherever. Like, there's got to be this stupid. There's no way if you stop in the middle of a chapter that the car can't remember that. Like, I don't get it. There's no way. So I got to do some learning about that because it's very upsetting to be in the middle of it, stop, and then you come back and it starts all over again. I'm like, no, this isn't cool. Um, but anyway, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. This business of people discovering what works for them and positively, right? Because I spend a lot of time working with people who do things that work for them, but it's only causing them more heartache, and they are okay with that because it's part of their process. It's not going to get them anywhere in the future, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Well, except for when you discover that you've been screwing up for years and you get a wake up call, that might be good. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. March 2023, The Tools, coming to a book club near Men for You. Sounds like a great franchise that nobody wants.
Hard to tell. Hard to tell. We'll see who shows, right?
Well, that's the thing. Lots of people sign up, and lots of people don't show. That's okay. That's life. That's life. That's why I don't do this for other people. I
Yeah.
do this for me because, I mean, hey, if you guys were paying me, that'd be a different story. I would be doing it for you guys. And then if you come and you get what you paid for, great. And if you pay and you come and you don't come, well, that's on you because I'm showing up um, to provide you with what you paid for. So, but it's free. And I know free people, everybody wants free. But sometimes when you get free, you don't invest in it the same way you do when you have to pay out of pocket. Or at least that's my perspective.
There's I like the so going back to Benny for a second.
The Stoic Padawan
Yeah,
on
go back
Twitter.
to the Stoic Padawan and they, I don't know. Well, so they doing this chat and you sort of also discovering the high percentage of people that are just scrolling. The funny thing about the like at some point, I think you and I have probably touched on this a little bit. You and I wouldn't still be like we've talked about the work of maintaining this relationship because you and I, any new listeners, like we're not in the same town. Like we don't see, like, I guess considering the distance, I guess we see, like, I see you more regularly than I do my mom. So there's an element of interactivity that we're maintaining, right? Um, it's funny with any sort of community that um rallies around a content creator, let's say rallies around an idea or rallies around a type of work. There's input output, right? There's input output. And the one thing with the book club that I'm starting to be aware of is the importance of the input. Really, really the importance of the input and watching to see who is it that's regularly inputting. I'm watching that because I'm starting to feel a need to make demands of people. And I don't mean that as like enforcement. Maybe it's more of a trust thing. Like I want the relationships to become stronger. I want stronger relationships with some of the people that are in the crew. And I think in order to do that, of course, I will take the risk and I will do the work. But I'm starting to notice my needs that way, that to I guess really it is to take the risk and be that person to sort of um, impress upon people that this isn't a doom scroll thread. This is something where I entirely do want to stop, examine, um, fight a little bit, like debate, support, share resources. It reminds me of, and I think you and I might have talked about this way back in the day. Do you remember? I forget the actual name of it. There's so there's this story, and I think they actually even made like a movie or a TV show out of it. There's this story about I think it's called a Council of Fathers, Council of Dads. Do you remember you and I we talked about this a long time ago? And it was a part of the discussion when I think when I put to you this idea that the book club for men is sort of it's on the cusp, at least one step of becoming something more than a book club. And we kind of, we talked a little bit about whether or not that was how if that was attractive, or if it's just kind of like symptomatic of spending time around, like how do you then sort of like grow that relationship once you notice it? And I'm aware of this Council of Dads or Council of Fathers story where I think a dad was terminally ill. I think this is the story. Terminally ill, and became aware of the fact that they wanted to have a circle of individuals that, simply put, would kind of look out for their kid, but that the kid would have access to these other voices when dad is no longer there. Um, I know for sure there's more to it. There's more to it, but I think that's let's say the basic framework. In order for that to work, there has to be at least individual agreement that they're willing to play that role. Who knows collectively whether or not those individuals are talking to each other, but they're willing to rally around this kid in order to kind of play, a step in dad kind of role when and if the bio father passes. And there's things about I find like that's my primary access point to the book club for men, I think, is through the dad lens. And I know that not everyone in the crew is a dad, but I find like that's what I'm listening for. I'm looking for the things that actually, like, that's what I crave in the conversation. The other stuff is good too. I love talking about the book too, but that's where my center is even in doing this work. Like when I really dress it down, it is about, if I say about becoming a better human, I would say specifically lens it's becoming a better human for my family in some way. So I want to find a way to become more brave, to be more direct with people in the group when I do have needs or something that I want to share, to see if I can. It's a very cerebral way to kind of make friends, but I really do want to push myself to consider that I can have more people, not less, helping me out with the things that are important to me. So that's what I'm. It's kind of where I'm at, and you know, I think this is something that's been growing in my brain for a little bit. Because I would say in some ways this is the most stable group of male friends that I've ever had. Consistently, like where I think I could reach out to one of them and have a conversation in the least, and that they would likely get back in touch with me, inside of a reasonable amount of time. I have some of the mobile numbers too. So yeah, it's kind of I'm just noticing that there's a bit of a change in me. I think this book, I'm hoping this book as well will provide at least a platform for people to be able to speak from their experience and to be able to help each other with some of their experiences. Because the book gets right in your head. Like it goes right there. I don't know how many pages it is in real life, but it's one of the shorter audiobooks that I've picked up before. Like I think it comes in at 5 hours on audio. I don't know what that translates to. I think it's 5 to 6 hours. What's that? 200 pages, maybe 250. Do you know how many pages it is? No, off top.
I don't have it with me. It
Okay.
doesn't look like it's a tough read. It's 8
Yeah.
chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't look like it's gonna.
All right.
I'm actually looking forward to digging in.
Yep. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. I'm liking it too. It's also a book that I've been experiencing where my brain I don't feel the need. Like sometimes when I read books, I'm constantly sidebarring them. Like I have to pause and go, now I need to go look at this thing. Now I need to go look at this thing. Like it lights up my sort of ADHD brain. Like I have to go looking for other content. I find I can stay with this book. I can just stay in it. And then just at some point, life is like, yeah, Clough, you got to go. to go do something. Like that's all the time you had. So I'm digging it. Digging it. Think Stutz will come to our book club? For sure, eh?
He wouldn't miss it for the world.
For the world.
You know what I dislike? That these guys get so big and then they won't entertain people like us. Because I think if you heard about a psychiatrist, you contact them, you're like, hey, a bunch of us are getting together. We'd love to have you come talk for 20 or 30 minutes. I would think most people would entertain it. But once they become big time, I don't know. Anyway,
us noticing him does like he was big time long before we noticed him though.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Like psychiatrists to like major celebrities and stuff.
That's what I loved about you shared that Dak Shepard podcast. Like I
you ate that up, eh?
I ate up and gorged on it. But there was a funny moment in there where Stutz says something like, I got to check with my lawyers here because I can't, I don't know if he was drawing something or saying something. He's like, I got to check with my lawyers because my lawyer said, yeah, I can't, like, I shouldn't be doing that. And then he throws down, he has the same lawyer as Shonda Rhimes, who's like, I think that's Grey's Anatomy. Like, this is a major Hollywood superstar, producer, writer. So he's got some swagger now, this guy. And we don't even really, what's funny is I also want to, with this, I really want to be respectful and mindful, but I'm not quite sure how. It's something that's in my brain that the dude has Parkinson's. And that's an end game, right? That is an end game. There is an element of live with, right? That's the same stuff. I think that's what Michael J. Fox has. So I think it's quite amazing. Like even in that Dax thing, he's like, I got to take a rest. Can I take a rest? Like just to be able to claim that in the middle of this interview. And it's a long interview. It's like 2 hours long. Like he spends a good chunk of change with that crew. Lots to unpack with that dude. Lots to unpack. So I'm hoping that the crew will feed me in sort of digging into it. That's my hope. That's my hope.
Well, we're gonna find out. I want to go back to the book club for men for a minute because I know that when it's first started, I know some of you guys were talking about how it was more than just a book club. And at that time, it didn't like sit well with me. But since then I've been thinking about it a lot. And I've actually been thinking about creating something that's more than a book club. But I'm being kind of careful about it, and I'm kind of
I like the caginess. Coming
cagey.
soon. Cagey, yeah, cagey. It's like kind of don't want to say too much. Don't want to say too much. I like it.
Well, I don't want to say too much because I don't know too much. What I do know is
let all our listeners know, like this conversation right now is happening in real time, my friends. Like this is not. Chitz has said nothing about this prior to this moment. So
right, yeah, you
got me on the edge. Yeah, you got me on the edge of my seat.
But it's come up. Like I've been thinking about it lately. I've been thinking about a few things. I see a real need to bring men together to be a little bit more vulnerable and to talk about things in a space where they might not talk about these things in other places. So that's the first thing. And I think it's because I'm on Twitter, I'm running into people who identify as men and seem to have a thirst for these spaces. But I don't want it to be come here and let's hang out. I don't want it to be that informal, and I don't want it to be so formal that it's like you're only going to do this in this space. So I'm just kind of, and it might be one of those things where I just have to start it and see what happens rather than plan, execute. It might have to be execute, plan, execute, re-plan, execute again. Who knows? but I'm kind of playing with this idea, and I don't want it to be just willy-nilly. So I am kind of digging into my training as a counselor, the things I've learned as an educator, and the things I've experienced in real life. I'm trying to, as best as I can, harmonize some of those things and take advantage of them. So, is it going to be like a group counseling space? No, because I can't call it that, and that's too formal. Is it going to be just a place to hang out on Thursday? No, because it's too informal. I believe there needs to be a purpose because I want people who come to come for a reason. And like a with a focus. Can you go off focus? Of course you can. So I'm thinking about this. I'm looking into things, I'm reading some stuff. I think there's a place for it. We'll see. But but the book club, so I kind of like that people feel good about being in the book club space. And it's like the book is a vehicle to bring people together, but I truly do want to deal with the book. I don't want the book to be secondary. The book is primary. That's what we're there for. And then if you can pick up other things from being there, that's awesome. But I would like to move into another space. And maybe a book like The Tools is the space, right? Maybe a book where people can learn more about strategies they can use to help themselves is the approach to having men come together and talk about their experiences and talk about what they're going through or experiencing with the intersection of being a man and possibly a father, because I know, and a husband, these things add their layers that are added on. So yeah, thanks for all your talk. Got me into thinking about this and expressing it here on the podcast.
I'm curious about scalability. Um, and if you've sort of thought what your thoughts are on that. And I mean it in so much as you and I'll say myself as well, have spent since I've gotten to know you, you've introduced this element of seeking mentorship in social media spaces and finding individuals that are living a life or putting down knowledge and wisdom um, in ways that feel accessible, feel like it's kind of like, despite the fact it's a broadcast, that it's okay to also see it as a broadcast and also specifically speaking to my context. Um, we've shared different life coach kind of individuals. I think you more so than me. I think you had it more on your radar longer than I have. So for me, there's an element here of recognizing that whatever this project is, whatever it ends up looking um, right now, we've got a crew of people that I would say are willing to kind of be vulnerable with what you're putting down. Um, in the least, they're tolerating the WhatsApp chat. Like there's decent, if not consistent interactivity there where you sort of do something and someone will respond. Like it's on people's short list of taps on their phones. They'll come back to it. There's a shorter list of individuals that constantly, like, they're right there responding to it. So we've got a group that's at least responsive to this particular version of the algorithm. But the algorithm is very linear. It's post to community, conversation, community, next post. So there's a lot of very kind of closed conversations. There's nothing loose where, people are going back and sort of checking the feed again and then liking something after the fact. There's actually far less liking in the group than there is actual comments back in it, which is kind of cool. Like that's something that's prized, right? And anyone that's delivering content, that's what they're craving. Probably they're craving both because the system looks at likes through a very specific algorithmic lens, and that moves it up in the chain of visibility. But the comments mean that there's humans out there paying attention to what you're doing, right? That's the organic interactivity that I would say most humans are craving, that you sort of You call and someone responds. So scalability to me becomes really fascinating. And I think that's part of why, like some of those spaces when there's like 100 people in the room and only like 6, 7 people talk. And that's just the nature of it. I get it. That's the nature of it. You get to be in the room. It's like you're going to a conference. But then I start to realize when I go to those conferences, like when I met Will Gurley face to face at Quest, I didn't give a shit about him doing a presentation on TED Ed. I wanted to talk directly to him. And the value of making a connection with Will was not based on the fact that I sat in a room and listened to him talk about student voice and TED Ed. It was because I went over and I actually sat down beside him at his table and got to meet him and talk to him. So that's that sort of like that scalability. So you're on the outset of this. Is any part of your rough draft of this looking to say like the scalability here is like this thing that you're looking at, because you do say having a space, paraphrasing, having a space where let's say men can talk, if that's kind of a component of it, is there a class cap on that, or would part of this be satisfying for you to hold Twitter spaces where you can talk and we'll see who wants to grab the mic? Yeah, just curious. That's the scalability part, right? And it kind of comes down to where you feel like I'm going to say you're offering in this the benevolence, the energy, the therapy, the purpose, the why of you doing this. Where do you feel it being more satisfied? Smaller room or being able to get a lot of people in the big room? And I guess it could be both. What are you thinking?
Initially, my thoughts are smaller space, less people, less people translating into more engagement
Mm-hmm.
during the time together is my initial thinking. A space would be great in terms of a place where strangers could enter into a room and, like a buffet, pick up what they want, come and go as they please. So there's a couple of different models. One model I'm thinking is like the book club for men, where people sign up, I know who they are, they get an email with a link, we meet on a certain night and a certain time, and there's some structure. So it would be like a 6 week thing or an 8 week thing. So this is where I'm looking at like having a framework, not being like anal completely to the framework, but having a framework like this week, this is the topic for this week. And they would be general, and I would hope that people could walk away from them with a couple of ideas or tools um, that could help them in their everyday operation. So, 5 to 8 week type framework. People come and go. Now, I could build off that and and do a space every week where I it's like a mini version, an express version of the formal meet with the same 12 guys every week and have it wide open. People will show up and people won't show up,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like that's why I don't want to put too much thought into that unless it becomes a weekly thing, but I'm not prepared for that either. So it would be more experimental in a spaces venue. And then what would be epic is if we had a WhatsApp group or a Telegram group for people who have participated to continue to be part of the growth of other people and to put their growth on display if they choose. So I've got some ideas. I've got some ideas, and those ideas can be, I think, it the my the big idea is malleable enough that it can fit in different places and spaces. It just would look a little bit different. So uh, I think I like the start of a more formal component, like, hey, sign up for this. And I think initially the people who would sign up are the people who were part of the book club for men. I think initially that's what would happen. But I'm open to having other people jump in. And then I even think, hey, if I run a couple of these, I get a real feel for it. Maybe I can charge for this. Maybe I want to. Hey, it's going to cost you this much money and this is what you're going to get. And then maybe the whole thing falls apart because nobody wants to pay for it, but they're happy to participate or sign up for free. I don't know. I don't know, but I think the payment portion, if I were to be collecting funds for this, I would be looking at what can I do with those funds to benefit the value that I'm supposedly giving to these people. What could I do with that? Like, what would be the purpose of the money? Well, first and foremost, it becomes really formal then in terms of people expect something, and I'm expected to give it to them or whoever else is running it. Because I could create a framework and then say, if you say to me, you know what, Chids, can I run something like this on a Tuesday night? Because I know you're running on a Thursday night. Awesome. If you're going to run it and you're going to call it what I'm calling it, here's the framework. This is what, don't call it the same thing I call it if you're not going to follow the framework that we've done a few times and people think that they like.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of ways. I but I would like to it would be great initially if I could do something that would benefit people. That would be it's me just putting some positivity into the universe and just like I have the skills, I have the expertise. I feel it may be needed. We'll see. I don't know. It's just an idea bouncing around my head. How can I bring other men value?
My buddy, Les, I
Les
worked
Nassman?
Les Nessman. He's been called up before it. I worked with him back in the day when still here at this school, Williams, my first school that I was at. We were in guidance together, and like the guidance department, and I've stayed in contact with him. We've done book tradesies, and recently trying to get out for some coffee. And he's a big supporter of my poetry. He's usually one of the first people to offer something, and it's not just a hey thumbs up. He's like, I dig this. It's got me thinking about this, and it's moving from thought to action. He goes, I'm going to go out and I'm going to write something today. And really, when I think about what I crave with my pieces and by just putting pieces out there, is that step, like, cool, you've put something out that reminds me, and then insert whatever the thing that the person now feels like they have to do. So sometimes it's, I want to do some more writing, and I'm like, cool, I'm happy to help, happy just to read it, let me know. Or I have to go talk to my child about a thing. Like, your story has sort of like got me thinking about, I need to sort of basically interact in my life in some way. So it's the synthesis of what I produce turning into something in somebody else's life. I dig that. I dig that a lot, more so than someone just doing a like or a thumbs up. Les is always very active that way, and connecting what I've put up to something that he's processing through. And for the longest time, when I was first working with him, and a little bit afterwards too, he's retired now. He's been a part of a men's group since as long as I remember him. I believe like on Thursday nights, and they meet in person. And I can remember like when I met him first, when like really got to know him through OSSTF. He was when I first started teaching, he was one of the branch presidents. And then when I took on the branch presidency a couple years in, he was like my conciliary. Like, he was kind of helping me to understand, because no one was stepping forward to it. So he approached me. He's like, if you'll be the person, he goes, I'll help you out. I'm like, cool. So that was my on ramp into that kind of leadership. But also along the way, he's like, I got this men's group, and he always presented it. He never said specifically, come on out on Thursday, but he was consistently offering it up, and he would just talk openly about it. And this process that you're going through right now, trying to figure out, like, I would agree, like, heads down, is there use for it? Absolutely. Based on my meager understanding of trying to live a philosophical life and my meager understanding of some of the conversations we've had in the book club for men, I would say my meager view of having a space where men can talk about this stuff, like, yes, it's it's down. Like, yeah, absolutely. Um, what fascinates me most about this is in what does the it's the I mean the crudest way to say it is to say to be an influencer, but what I'm talking about when I say that is how do you get it goes back to my expectations of this crew even going forward with books is that I'm not there to doom scroll. I don't want to look at just a feed of likes and thumbs up. And you had kind of mentioned you and I talked about this before like um I've taken downtime from the feed because it started to move in a direction that wasn't interesting to me. Like it was moving away from the work. And that's fine. I'm not criticizing how other people use a social media space. I'm just embracing what it is that I need from a social media space. If I go right back to your first question about why I'm no longer on Twitter, well, because it no longer served what my needs were. And I know how to get back in. My relationships are fine. I can go back and start it again. My hope moving forward with the next book and whatever the new iterations are is that I can continue to find ways to express because it's about me and my growth in this community, express what my needs are in a way that other individuals will hear that and support me. Like and I think that's really different than when we started with the book because at the time we're like, what's a good book that'll just get us all talking? And then we started talking and getting to know each other. And it's like, I want to know more about that. And I want to know more about that because I'm interested in you, but I also want to know about that because I'm kind of going through a similar thing. You start to parallel. I'm going through something similar. And there's stuff that has popped up even recently within this crew that you're like, man, like we need to still stay together because there's stuff that we could, even if we're not being asked, there's stuff that we could support each other with. So hands down, your instinct to sort of support this bigger picture of men's wellness. I mean, I'm not surprised because you pay attention to your own mental wellness, and I think that's the first step, right? It's hard, and that's why I think a lot of this stuff doesn't come off like branding or sponsored, right? It just comes off as like I'm paying attention, and this is the stuff that guys will talk about if given the opportunity in a safe space. So I'm in whatever direction you go with it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. You just said something that lit me up a little bit. This idea that I'm living it. I believe um, my daily mistakes as a father, husband, and man is like it's beautiful because I have the contents right here. Like I don't it's not like I need to look outside of me to be like, "Hey, how what how do men behave? Why do they behave that way and how could they improve themselves if they feel that it's negative behavior?" It's right here, bro. I'm the poster dude for it. Like I constantly find myself operating in a way that may not be beneficial to people around me, even though I'm trying to become a person who's doing things that are benefiting people properly. So it's like, I think that's the beauty in it in a sick kind of way that it's like the content's right here. And then if other people, um, then other people can, I'm not searching for content. I'm going to use my lived experience and kind of how I'm operating and then try to find anchors um, to connect it to things that we I can extrapolate some positive stuff from and then move forward. Um, so yeah, it's there. It's an idea. Um, and I'm loving that. So I think one of the evolutions around this idea not only comes from the book club for men, but the fact that we are so now, it is so normal to work with people virtually. Right? It's like it's beautiful because I can literally just sit in front of this computer on a Tuesday night or Wednesday night for an hour And that 1 hour is the portal that's just open to whoever wants to, well, not to whoever wants to come, but to people who have demonstrated an interest in wanting to be in this virtual space. People, well, the book club for men, we've had people participate from their cars, from other locations. They may not be at home. I think that's the beauty of it. Um, so that's, yeah, thanks for entertaining my thought and kind of giving me your perspective on it. I appreciate that. And again, I wasn't planning on talking about this. It just kind of rolled out as we were experiencing the podcast.
I think that's cool. I think where if you can shorten the distance between creative thought and expressive thought, that's cool. That's when you're sort of in flow, right? Um, being able to improvise and freestyle at the same time. And I think some people can do that just because they're boundless, as in they're not sort of like limited by social rules. So, individuals that can just like have a thought in their head and do it right away. But then there's other people that can turn that on and off as part of their creative process. I know individuals, there's some kids at my school that they can freestyle rap. You give them a topic and they just go and they don't wait. It's the Mel Robbins 5 4 3 2 1. They're 5 4 3 2 1ing as they're listening to you about to make the offer. They're just ready to go when you kind of say start, and then like they throw it down. And that type of access to real-time processing where you're being creative and expressing at the same time is cool. Stream of consciousness, to be able to sort of do that's cool. So I dig that you're kind of throwing down on this. Some might say in a brave way, but I think you're just doing it in a very fluent way. And some people may say like, whoa, man, like I wouldn't want to be, I don't know if I could do that. I don't even know if I could participate in a space like that. I think because, like you said, you're sort of living it and benefiting, not only benefiting and simultaneously benefiting and also being challenged by the fact that some of the stuff just doesn't work when you want it to, but living that philosophical life and trying to draw in some of these grounding kind of rules of how to move through the world and then test it right away. Like, it's like the videos. It's like those, I don't know which one, TikTok, but it's like, I tested this theory. And so someone says, something about cutting an avocado a certain way. And then there's the split screen. They're like, it actually works. So it's like, we're in this, this flex of what is actually post-truth, what's really truth. The only way you kind of get there is if you try it yourself right away and then kind of come back and say, I'm still trying it. And also, like you said, admitting that you can be your own worst enemy on this. Because even the Stutz moment is just a moment. It is. It's a moment. That's another layer that seems to make sense to me based on other work that I've done. So I'm kind of moving through these layers of philosophy that seem to be talking to each other, but not only that, kind of leading me to the next space. So I noticed Stutz because of what it reminded me of good work that I've done in other spaces. So I dig it. Dig it.
Awesome, bro.
I think I got to go do shit. I can see I'm getting texts from upstairs. So,
oh, it's plumbing, friggin' plumbing, bro.
Yeah. The
It's
tape
like,
is holding. The tape is holding, and it's reduced it to just a little boop, boop, boop. So
that's
until I
good.
can, and we're gonna see if we can hold the company to account. So we have no extra debt. Well, I'm gonna check it as soon as I get off the pod. It's around the corner there. But I checked it this morning. I checked it last night, and it's just barely dripping. And that's the floor is dry. Everything's dried up now. The bucket is not filling up anymore. So that leak in the water softener, tomorrow I'm going to be hammering the company that installed it and saying, you need to get your, that's a lot of swear words I put in there, but out to my house and get this fixed, because it would have been $500 to have it done this weekend. So
Did you, just before you go, did you not call the company that did this work? Did you call them yesterday?
5 times. Not
And
only
they
that, I
don't answer
called
the
them
phone?
they wouldn't even, there's no answers. So it's funny. So here's my one. So part of my brain is like, this is a family company in town. It's a family company. has been in town for a while. The company headquarters is actually a house. They run the business out of their house, and they have kind of like storage areas. It's actually just around the corner from my house. So it makes me think something's going on. And I actually said that in one of my messages. It's like, you folks got me worried. You folks okay? Like, this is strange that you haven't answered back, that no one has answered back. So even throughout a little bit of the frustration of this not getting fixed, my my compassion kind of kicked in a little bit. Because I am like this is weird. And we've had we've had a great relationship with this company to the point where I don't see it 100% just as a company. I can see the individuals that have come and done the work in my house. I know the names of the individuals that came and did the work in my house. So it's that one step deeper, right? So someone may say, I'm allowing them the grace period of this. Now I'm less escalated than I was when I first found the leak. And I was mentioning to you, I dropped the polo just talking about in the process of trying to manage this, I've taught myself some new skills, which is valuable. I now know how to use the emergency tape properly. Like I know more about quick cleanup, which it's no longer what do I do in improv. I now have a process, how to lift the carpet, how to get the fans in, how to sort of direct the water towards the drain. Like I now have a protocol that I know works. So there's valuable learning in that. And I take that forward. And this, leaks randomly happen. It can feel like it's intentional, you're being targeted, but I think that's unskilled thinking. It just because I think there is a certain element of here's what the universe is putting your way, deal. And the pain is the fact you just don't know how to deal. Or you want someone else to deal for you. And no, we were the ones that we had to make sense of it. So I'm going to take some credit for that and not just feel like it was all pain. We figured it out. We figured out a process to keep it from damaging our house. That's cool.
I wish you well with all of it. There's so much I could say about what you just said, but
You went through something similar. I mean, you had the water stuff in the basement. Like, what was it, like a
yeah,
year ago,
it
last summer,
was
sometime?
it was a year in the summer, so a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So
And it's a disaster because you don't it's very interesting that you talk about having new skills and new learnings because when it happens, you don't know what to do
you got
because
nothing.
you there's and you don't even I won't even call it panic. You just don't know what to do because you don't have a schema for it. You don't have any you
Yeah.
don't there's no understanding. Now there's understanding. Like you know what to do with a small leak, but that small leak could have turned into a bursting pipe, right? Like
It's true. Yeah.
it could have. You don't know. And I didn't know about your basement. I didn't know how much down there. I know it's not
Hmm.
finished, but I didn't know what kind of things you had there that could be ruined by water.
Hmm.
Because water is life and water is death.
Yeah. Yeah.
Water
Yeah.
can cause so much damage and it gets into places that you'd never imagine it would go. But anyway, I'm glad that you got some skills from this. I'm glad that you see positive. I'm glad things are working in the right direction for you.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like if you don't have protocols, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble. This is why now when we go on vacation, we just shut the water off. Like there,
Yeah.
it's like it's a no-brainer. Just shut it off.
It's a good idea. We didn't think to do that when we left the last time when we went on our road trip, but you're right. You're absolutely right. That would have been I think part of the reason we didn't is because our cat was staying home and someone
I
was having to come over. So
I get that. So then, uh, like when I think of that, now there's mitigating. Like
yeah,
all our toilets and sinks have shut-offs underneath. So if I can't
yeah,
turn off the water completely,
true.
I can turn off the water to the washing machine. Like it's worth creating the protocol.
It is.
And another thing I learned, if you go away and you've not asked somebody to check in on your house at certain intervals and you come home to an emergency, the insurance company may not cover you because you knew you're going to be away for a certain amount of time
Yeah.
and you did not go through the motions of securing your
It's like
household.
you're being hammered for a lack of common sense.
100%. So one of the good things about my flood was that it happened the day after we got back or the day of that we got back from vacation. Had it
Right.
happened during the vacation time for that vacation, we didn't arrange for anybody to come over and look at the house. We didn't arrange for that. And even if I shut off the water, it was the water heater that decided to lose its mind. So it was full of
Yeah.
water anyway.
Yeah.
And it was full of like the water in a water heater. Whoa, you don't know how much that is until it starts coming out into your basement.
Yep.
It's something.
Yep. I also have gained an appreciation of not protecting dad details. And this is
I don't know
something
what that.
that,
What do you mean by that?
oh, we wait for it,
Oh,
it's the stuff that only you know how to do, or you assume
oh,
only you know how to do. So I am actively now, whenever I'm sort of working through something like this, often I would say, like, the kids might walk away, just kind of go to them like, no, you're going to stand here and you're going to watch, and I'm going
hmm
to be doing that. I've made a commitment to myself to make sure that they have at least observed every single little repair that I do to the house from here on out. And
okay.
that's a big thing. Like put that into your operating system, right?
hmm
The whole, we've talked about the things that getting up and kind of putting out the garbage, or shoveling the driveway, or mowing the lawn. Like, I want to make sure this is what I've come to realize, is that I've had to accept, like, this isn't me. I think, and this was something I had to kind of swallow and process through, because part of my love language is taking care of this stuff, like just doing it right. Like, it's partially duty, but it's also so closely attached to purpose and identity and love for my family and protecting my family. But I'm starting to realize that for me to die with that knowledge and not pass it on, that's a problem. That's a problem. Not that I'm planning on dying anytime soon, but there is some value to knowing how to pull the spark plug out of the lawnmower, or what are some, like, what happens if you have to pull the vent pipe off of the dryer, or even put a screw in a wall, tighten a screw in a wall so that it's not popping, and to re paste it or remud it on that spot, and then sand it and paint it again. Like, these are, I would say, definitely stuff that my parents were never ever obvious about. All of them had, like, Easter Bunny, Santa Claus kind of effect. You go to sleep, you wake up, it's fixed. No, I think I want my kids to see what the broken world looks like, and help them to understand that they can be capable and fix it to a degree. And it doesn't always start good. It starts off quite bad, but the more you sort of accept that that's the reality of the world, you get better at it, right?
100%. And I thank the sweet Lord above that it was my son was playing video games in the basement and he heard something strange.
It
And
was
then he
Maddie
came.
that brought this to me
Okay.
too. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, my oldest was playing video games. He heard something. He came out. He saw water starting to come out of the furnace room and came up and said, "We have a problem." And that's I went down there like, "Oh my God, we got a problem." Um, and it's important for everybody in this house to know where the main water shut-off valve is, which is it's
You
kind
said
of
it
it's
sucks at your
intricate in
house.
my house. Yeah, it's intricate because you got to go through two rooms to get to it,
Oh,
and it's like kind of buried like behind, not behind, beside, like I've got boxes piled in that room, but so
yeah.
I can still get to it, but it's not like a red handle that says pull here. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's
Oh,
kind of
absolutely. Yeah.
hidden away in the house. So um they should know where that is. Basically, I should talk to my kids today and my wife about if there's a leak in any bathroom, toilet, sink, the shutoff valve for that toilet or sink is right there, and show them where it is for the toilet and the sink. And then if it's a big home thing, it's downstairs in the basement. You got to know where it is. But crazy. I hate now that as a homeowner with the water, your worst enemy. Worst
Mhm.
enemy. It'd be
Yet
epic.
entirely, it doesn't
Like,
matter. To a degree, it doesn't. And at the exact same time that I'm siding with you, it also doesn't matter a damn that it's your worst enemy, because part of what that has to make sure you do is that you become skilled. Like, that's the only response: become skilled. Because, yeah, it's just such a whack thing. And I think back to my parents did not. My dad, I don't. My mom probably would have been more likely to do it, But my dad was not the person that says, like, here's how you change the nylon cord on the whippersnipper. Here's how you change um if your extension cords get shredded, here's how you put on a replacement plug. Here's how you rewire it. That was not my experience. All of that has happened out of necessity and my own curiosity. So that's the stuff that I'm like really paying attention to now, because I do it so automatically. I just take care of it. And it's not that I'm never not going to say I'm not going to take care of it. I'm just going to make sure that someone kind of observes it. Did I ever tell you, just quick? Can I do one funny story?
Yeah.
An example of me taking care of it. I think this might have been before I met you. Did I ever tell you about the time I got stuck in the attic for
No.
Thanksgiving? I was up there. I was stuck for like 45 minutes.
Like in the house that you currently live in?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, you didn't tell me that.
Perfect example. So I'll end on this. Perfect example of the dad mindset, the dad details, just to take care of something. So it was Thanksgiving. Okay, Thanksgiving. And everyone was like coming over to eat at our place. Stuff was in the final like 30 minutes, 35 minutes of getting ready. Like it was kind of in that spot. And I was at that time replacing the exhaust fan in the bathroom in our master bedroom. Okay. So the master bedroom is kind of above our kitchen. It's on that back corner of the house, directly above our kitchen at the back. So where you were standing in our backyard, remember where the dome was? The that other corner across our backyard and straight up to the top there, that's where our master bedroom is. And our kitchen is right down below that. In order for me to replace that fan, I actually had to go up into the attic to sort of adjust the wiring that was down between the like the boards. I had to move the insulation out of the way. There was a vapor barrier I had to deal with, and I hadn't quite centered it right. And I think I was actually in the bathroom, like, because the fan is kind of, it's above the toilet. I'm like, oh damn, look at it. It's like I could see that it wasn't centered right. So I'm like, okay, the access panel to that is in our closet. We have a walk-in closet in our bedroom. So I went and grabbed the ladder, and so now my family, my family, my kids, my spouse are downstairs, kind of just like milling about before our in-laws arrive. So in the time that I go upstairs, I was supposed to be going upstairs for a shower. I decide I'm going to do the fan instead. So I pause from that. My family thinks I'm just grabbing a shower. I go up into the attic, and where, I don't know if your attic's the same way, but where you get to so this bathroom is right in the corner where the roof comes down really, really tight. So you really are, I'm flat crawling to it. There isn't a lot of clearance, right? Because as your roof comes down, those rooms are square underneath, right? Like I got to do this in front of the camera. So the ceiling is here, but because the roof comes down, if you go to the corner of the ceiling, I'll go to this side, go to the corner of the ceiling, like there's very little wiggle space. So I was right tight in that corner. Now remember, insulated. I had to crawl in, and the way that I crawled in, I ended up like, I realized that one, I wasn't in the right mindset to do it because I was wanting to get it done fast. Not a good mindset when you're looking, you need to be efficient, but be mindful of moving too fast when you're doing home repairs. I've learned that. And I've learned it specifically in this. So I got up there, up in the roof. I crawled, literally to where I could put my hand on the soffit outside my house. So that sort of aluminum stuff that hangs over, that's meant to vent your skin. So I was right as close to the corner of my house as possible. Insulation right below me, fan running in the bathroom. So these layers of insulated sound. I get into this corner and my legs lock up. Like they start, like I get crampy and I can't move my legs in order to crawl back out again. And then I start to panic. 45 minutes later, and me screaming up in there, I managed to slowly extricate myself from there. I come downstairs, I'm covered in insulation, and my family's like, where were you? Like, what happened? I'm like, I was up in the attic. They're like, why the hell did you go in the attic? I'm like, well, I noticed that the fan needed to be adjusted. I'm like, I'm gonna go grab my shower now. So I will tell you, that moment where I was screaming for help was a transformative moment. My instinct to just fix a thing was well placed, because it did have to be fixed. but I should have told someone I was going to do that. And that started my whole thinking, like, yeah, I'm not going to hoard the dad details anymore.
That's insane. I'm surprised you didn't tell me.
It might have been just before we met. I don't know. I don't know when.
It was
Yeah,
a long
I don't
time.
know the timeline. Yeah, it was when we've been in this house now for, what have I known you, 6 years?
Yeah,
Probably.
approximately.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was in the first 5 years. I think we've been in this house now for 12 years, 11 years. So I think it was in the first 5, that, because when we were still doing a lot of little mini renos around the house. Yeah. When my legs locked up, bro, I was so stunned that the body was betraying. And at the same time, I'm like, I had nothing stoic about that. I panicked. I'm panicked. And no one could hear me. No one could hear me screaming up in the attic.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that note, this was season 6, episode 20, number 238 of the Decoded Podcast.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate you.
Same here, brother. Have a great day and stay out of the attic, or at least
stay out of the attic. Yeah. Stay out of the attic.